About the fun times we're having in 2023 for a little bit and what that all means. Let's talk about calculating your nitrogen advantage from injection. Are we changing our fertilizer applications? We're injecting manure that changes our nutrient management plans, it changes our manure management plans. Are we backing down our fertilizer rates to compensate for the additional nitrogen that injection is putting into the system for us? So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and then if we have time, we're going to wrap up talking about the phosphorus issue, because that is something that I see continually being a problem for you over the next 10 to 20 years as we try to be successful within the current regulations and be successful in whatever future regulations are going to be. So anyway, fun times in 2023. Who's having fun so far in 2023? I'm having a great time. This is fantastic. We planted our corn and it didn't rain for 40 days. And we saw stuff happen this year that we have never, ever, ever seen happen before. You can have perfect planting conditions, right? The best planting conditions that you've had in your entire career. And you get this, right? Where you only got roots growing on one side of the plant. That's frustrating as all get out, but we saw it a lot this year. Not only did we see sidewall compaction where it was completely dry, but you see this one root coming down right here. You bet that root was growing right down the channel, right? It wasn't growing out into the soil, it was growing right down into the channel. And so you had plants that were struggling under 40 days of no rain to produce a root system, and that's about, this corn right here is knee high, right? That's about the root system that plant put on. Then it started to go into brace root development, first set of brace roots, second set of brace roots, now it's getting into the third set of brace roots. When we started getting rain, this plant went from knee high in a root system like that to about 8 foot high and a root system not much bigger than that. That's going to lead to some problems here later in the growing season. We've got plants that accelerated top growth and didn't put a whole lot of investment into below ground growth. We're starting to see some lodging happen already in plants. If the root systems don't keep pace, as in brace root development doesn't accelerate and happen at the pace that it normally should, these plants are going to struggle to get enough nutrients into their plants or enough nutrients into them to fill out grain in the later growth stages. We could be looking at a higher rate of cannibalization within our plants, meaning standability could be a major concern for us going into the fall of 2023. So keep that all in mind, because I'm sure you're all seeing this right now, and it's not good. So let's back up and talk about injection and manure applications. This is the first time, this is really fun, this is the first time that we saw ammonia burn from manure injection. All right, and we've been seeing injection on farms for 5, 6 years now and have had nothing but good stories to say about manure injection, and you just knew it was a matter of time before we were going to find something bad to say about manure injection. This was the year. We found bad things to say about manure injection. Right, it causes ammonia burn, right? And this was what ammonia burn looked like. We saw it in 3 different places this year with our customers. 2 of them were injecting hog manure, 1 of them was injecting food processing residuals. But the situation was always the same, right? It didn't rain. It didn't rain for a very long time after that manure was injected. And this is what you're looking for. You're looking for plants that are normal right next to a plant that is really, really poor. You're looking for a plant that is normal right next to one that almost looks like it's really drought stressed. That's what ammonia burn is going to look like. And you take the roots out, you dig the plant out, and the roots are pretty much gone, okay? That's the telltale sign of ammonia burn. It's almost like what people would say if they injected anhydrous ammonia in the Midwest, the type of burn that you would get fertilizer burn from anhydrous ammonia. That's what you're looking for with ammonia burn in injection. This is probably the best picture I could find, where you've got roots on one side of the plant that are totally burned away, and it's almost like your root. If everybody puts their finger out like this, that's what your root should look like. The tip of the root should be pointed. Right, but when you have ammonia burn, your tip of your root looks like this. It's almost like a club, like a club foot. And so that's what ammonia burn was looking at. Where we saw it, where we expect to see it, finishing hog manure, duck manure, dairy with no dilution. Those are scenarios that are just going to have higher ammonium concentrations in their manure. It's going to happen with normal application rates. All right, where we saw the hog manure, we were injecting hog manure at 5,000 gallons to the acre, still seeing burn. Where we did food processing residuals, we were up around that 12 to 14,000 gallon per acre rate, saw some burn. Dry soil conditions, right, the water in the manure, not enough to protect those seedlings. So you have, I don't know if I have a slide on here next. Yes, I do. So you get your manure samples, right? And when you get your manure samples done, you get the option to get it tested for ammonium, right? You can get it tested for total nitrogen, and you can get it tested for ammonium nitrogen. Now, I'm talking about ammonia burn, not ammonium. But once you add ammonium in this form to your soil, there is a pretty direct conversion that happens, right? Ammonium is a positively charged nutrient, right? Positively charged. Bonds to your soil very tightly. It's great because it doesn't leach. But the problem is when you inject that material and you inject all 5 or 14,000 gallons into a little softball-sized area, all the bonding sites for ammonium become saturated. And when you have the rest of the ammonium just sitting there, now a conversion happens, and NH4 is going to convert to ammonia. You can almost do a fairly simple calculation here, where if you had ammonium, which is NH4 nitrogen, you can convert it to ammonia doing 2 simple steps. And I won't bore you with those steps, other than to say that total ammonia in your manure is going to be about 2 or 3 points higher than this, right? So total nitrogen, 32.2. The difference here, you've got ammonium and you have organic. Those numbers should equal 32.2. What is not here in that sample, in any sample that you take, is the free-floating ammonia that might already be in your manure. That's the conversion that's already happening. So anyway, we've got ammonium here. We're going to put 5,000 gallons of hog manure on. We get 95 pounds of ammonium nitrogen. Right? If we compare that with dairy manure, and this is the same farm. Okay, this is one farm who is importing hog manure from a neighbor, and then they're using their own dairy manure. So if those manures were injected at the exact same day, 5,000 gallons of hog manure, 6,000 gallons of dairy manure, right here is the ammonia analysis for the dairy manure, 7 pounds per 1,000 gallon versus 19 pounds per 1,000 gallon for the hog manure. You can see the difference in ammonium nitrogen, 95 pounds versus 42. We've got a lot higher risk of ammonia burn in the hog manure because of that ammonium concentration. Now, this number right here, the difference between 95 and 42, is exactly why you inject manure, because it's the nitrogen savings that you get, right? There's a whole lot more nitrogen to be saved in this hog manure than there is in dairy manure. But that's where the risk is. So you can almost, you guys know where the risk of ammonia burn is going to be. It's going to be those manures that have a very high ammonium concentration. Duck manure, liquid duck manure, finishing hog manure, dairy manure that does not have dilution water, and FPR. So anyway, minimizing the risk. Why we saw it this year, we saw it because of dry weather, right? We didn't have rain for 40-some days, and people injected manure and then didn't have rain, right? They injected it, they waited 2 weeks before they planted the corn, and we lost 5,000 to 6,000 plants per acre because of ammonia burn. They waited 2 weeks. Right? So even after 2 weeks of dry conditions, we didn't have enough moisture in the soil to spark that conversion. The ammonium nitrogen went into the soil, it converted to ammonia. With water, that conversion is going to continue to take place, and it's going to eventually turn into nitrate. We didn't have water. So we had all that free-floating ammonia sitting around in our soils causing problems. So, you know, minimizing the risk, hey, if you guys could not repeat spring of 2023, that would be great. Right? So schedule more rain and just forget about the 40 days of no rain in your fields. You'll probably be okay. Follow your nutrient management plan rates. Generally, the nutrient management plan rates are reasonable enough to minimize your risk of ammonia burn. Injection spacing versus planter spacing, take a look at that. You know, if you're injecting on 30-inch centers and you're using duck manure or using finishing manure, you probably don't want to plant right over top of that injection slot. Injection orientation versus planter orientation, you guys know a lot about that. I don't really have to go into it, but on bigger fields, if we can orient our injection at a different angle from what we're planting, it's probably going to reduce our overall risk of ammonia burn on fields. And nitrogen stabilization products, those products are out there. This conversion is the exact same conversion that happens in fertilizer, and people are well attuned to putting a nitrogen stabilization product in with their fertilizer. You can do the same thing with manure. It is a giant pain, but those products are out there that you can do some things to minimize your risk of ammonia burn. So did anybody else see ammonia burn this year? Yeah. Similar situation to what I'm pointing out, or was it something different?
Similar situation. Neighbor from actually where I live, I didn't have anything to do with it.
Sure you didn't.
And I didn't know what it was until you told me that you can see the strips to the field right.
Yeah, you almost have to use your imagination to see the strips sometime, but it's there. Yeah.
It wasn't bad. Corn looks great now.
Yeah, corn looks great now, but people were not too happy about it when it happened. So just keep an eye on it. I don't know that we'll see it again. Like it really is that super dry weather, super dry soil conditions, lack of water that causes it. It may happen again, and you'll forget about it until then, but that's really the main driver behind it. So anyway, that's that. Next thing I wanted to talk about, dribble bar versus injection versus surface. And this goes back to a conversation that Eric and I have been having over the past couple of years, where we've got a lot of information on nitrogen retention and the economics of low disturbance manure injection. And we have a lot of information on the economics of surface manure application. We don't have a whole lot on dribble application. And we wanted to see what we could do to get information on dribble bar manure applications from a nitrogen retention standpoint. So we got the great idea, right? Eric's going to go out. Eric's going to go out and he's going to put a strip of injection in and then a strip of dribble bar and a strip of surface application, and the kids are going to fly the drone across it, and we're going to, oh my gosh, it's going to be fantastic. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to soil test it 24 hours before they apply the manure, and then 24 hours after, 48, 72, 7 days. And what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to track what the nitrate levels in the soil are and how that conversion is taking place, right? And it all sounds great in theory, right? And this is what our graph is going to look like, right? We're going to start off here at a point, and the injection nitrogen is going to pop, and the surface nitrogen is going to stay stable, and then everything is slowly going to go down. But man, you're going to be able to see what the difference between dribble bar and injection is going to be, right? And this is going to be great, guys. Unfortunately, this is what we got. So, there's really not, it's an epic fail. There's not much you can say about it. So here's what happened. I forgot to tell your dad to turn the nitrogen off on the corn planter, right? They put 20 gallons of nitrogen on with their corn planter when they plant. And so they injected the manure, they dribble barred it, they surface applied it, we planted the corn right across it, and the corn all got 20 gallons of nitrogen. And then here's me going out and pulling my soil tests and putting soil probes right in that 20 gallons of nitrogen and getting a graph like this, which is completely useless to you guys today. But putting it up there anyway because we do want to try this again next year. We do want to try to get better information so that we can provide economic data on dribble bar applications versus injection and give it to you so that you can talk to your customers about it and what the differences are going to be. So we're going to be looking to do this again next year. So if you're willing to do it on your place, I'll be over to pull the soil tests. If any of you out there are willing to do a similar thing and you live within a half hour of one of our team members, we'd love to do this project again and see if we can get some better information on it. And we will keep the nitrogen fertilizer out of the planter. So anyway, the interesting thing about this, and it's interesting because it is consistent every time that we do this, right? You go in and you do a nitrogen soil test before you plant the corn, before you haul manure, right? And this is rye silage, right? You took the rye silage off. There was a little bit of time between when the rye silage was taken off and when we did this sampling, probably 10 days, right? 10 days. If I were to talk to you about soil nitrate levels, right, and you had a cover crop in there, would you expect your soil nitrate levels to be high or low? You got a 50-50 shot, guys. Just somebody yell it out. Low. Yep, you get extra dessert today. So if you have a cover crop, that cover crop should be sucking all your nitrate out and keeping your soil levels low. Okay? And it does. Like, you can go out and you can test that. You take your cover crop off. How long does it take that soil to recover and start generating maximum amount of nitrogen in the soil? It takes about 10 days. Right? So he took his cover crop off. We did not apply any manure because I took this 24 hours before the manure was applied. And, oh, presentation's over. Right here, right? That is 70 parts per million of nitrogen in the soil with no manure applied. If you do the conversion, parts per million to pounds per acre, you multiply by 2. He's got 140 pounds of nitrogen sitting in his soil before any manure and any fertilizer was applied. That's pretty crazy. We see that time and time again. The ability of your soils, particularly when they're managed with cover crops and some other soil health practices, to pump out nitrogen at any point during the year is amazing. The more you do no-till and cover crops, that number tends to trend upward. 140 pounds of nitrogen present in the soil, and he didn't do a thing. We can use that number in some of our advanced nitrogen management work to dial down your fertilizer rates. Right? First, it comes from knowing every soil is going to react a little bit differently, but we've done this same test in Adams County, we've done it in Franklin County, we've done it in Northumberland County, we've done it in Berks County, we've done it every county mostly every county that we work in, and that number is pretty real. The amount of nitrogen sitting in your soil is a lot higher than we think. So we learned that. We didn't learn anything else from this project, but we learned that. So where do we go from here? If you've heard me talk before, chances are I put this graph up here because it's easy for you to remember. Where do we go from here? Well, we're here. We are right there in the growth curve, right? This is planting. This is when corn is knee-high, goes into a rapid uptake curve. Right there is tassel. Okay, so that's where we are. And this chart is looking at total nitrogen uptake in your corn plant. Right? Total nitrogen uptake from the soil to the roots to wherever it's gone within the plant. So here we are at tassel, and if you come across 75% of the total nitrogen that needs to go into your plant has gone into the plant so far at tassel. Meaning that from tassel until grain fill, the crop still needs 25% of the total nitrogen to go into the plant. That's a pretty interesting number. Right? We never see nitrogen deficiencies when corn is knee-high. We never see it when corn is waist-high. Never see it when corn is really tassel. This is where we see nitrogen deficiencies. Because whatever you're doing in fertilizer, whatever you're doing to retain nitrogen within your system, it runs out of gas out here. And it could run out of gas because of water. It could run out of gas because we don't have enough nitrogen. It could be that your soil is just poor at holding nitrogen. But just keep in mind that these last growth stages disproportionately affect yield. If you were to look at the last day, 2 days, 4 days of life of a corn plant before it reaches physiological maturity, those last couple days, by far, a super disproportionate effect on yield in test weight. Same thing is true with beans. Same thing is true with wheat. Those last couple days of life matter a whole lot more than some of the earlier days of life. So whatever you guys do on nitrogen going into the later part of the year, keep in mind that we have a huge risk of not having enough. We have a huge opportunity to do something to maximize our yields and nitrogen uptake. First slide I showed you guys was a root system that was pathetic. Right? And you can go out and you can dig your roots, and chances are you're going to find pathetic roots, roots that are subpar. And now we're talking about 25% of the nitrogen going in the plant here with a root system that may not be able to grab it. All right, so it's going to be a really interesting next couple of months to see how the corn plants react, what kind of standability and grain fill issues that we have. So calculating your nitrogen from injection. In about 15 minutes here yet. So developed something with Lancaster County. Lancaster County has an injection project, and we support that project. And we decided that Lancaster County people were having difficulty talking to their farmers about the economic advantages of injection. So we decided to develop a spreadsheet, just an Excel-based document. It's free. If anybody wants it, you can have it. That goes through, you can take it to your customers and show what injection does for nitrogen savings and nitrogen retention. It's pretty easy to use. You've got to have this ammonia nitrogen number. We talked about that earlier. When you get your manure samples, pay the extra couple of dollars, get that ammonium nitrogen number. That's going to be super important for you to working with your customers to figure out the value of injection. So what we end up doing is we say, okay, here is our manure analysis. 7 pounds of ammonium nitrogen, 18.3 pounds of total nitrogen. Here's our current urea prices. Here's our current UAN prices. Don't hold me to those. I just threw a number in there for the heck of it. I used $400 UAN, $600 urea. That comes to about 66 cents a pound for actual nitrogen. So now I've got my analysis in here. I know what my cost of fertilizer is. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to choose how that manure is going to be applied. So I'm going to do a summer crop for corn, and I'm going to compare no-till versus injected. The organic nitrogen reacts exactly the same no matter how you manage that manure. Organic fraction of your nitrogen stays the same. Dairy manure, it's always 35%. Hog manure, it's always 50%. Poultry manure, it's always 60%. No matter what you do, that organic fraction stays the same. What changes with your management is that ammonium retention. Right? For dairy manure, it's only 10% when we surface apply it for no-till. When we inject dairy manure, it goes up to 80%. All right? So that's 70% difference that you can account for. So plant available nitrogen, when we surface apply, is 42 pounds. When we inject, it's 86 pounds. You do the calculation, right? The nitrogen, when I no-till and I surface apply it, that nitrogen's worth $28 an acre to me. When I inject it, that nitrogen's worth $57.33 an acre to me. Those are numbers that then you can take out to your customers and say, okay, let's talk about whether injection is the right thing for you. We know there's an added cost in injection. We know it kind of slows down the process. Let's talk about how it's going to pay, right? This is how we figure out how it's going to pay. It's a really easy calculation to do. So if anybody wants this spreadsheet, be really happy to share it with you, and that way you can use it and get it out there. Changing our fertilizer applications. This is an interesting one for me because most of the time when people start the process of injecting nitrogen, they just want to test it and see if it's going to work, and they're not really interested in backing down their fertilizer rates. But if I just went and showed you that we're almost doubling our nitrogen retention from a surface application to no-till. Right, the surface application was 42 pounds of nitrogen, the injection was 86. That doubles it. That's about what you can expect with any kind of manure when you compare surface application to injection. Doubles the amount of nitrogen that you're getting from your manure. Well, if you're doubling the amount of nitrogen that you're putting into the system from your manure, should we be backing down our fertilizer rates? Right, because we're maybe increasing yield a little bit, but not a lot, right? So we probably want to look at backing down our fertilizer rates once we're comfortable with that injection system. So PA4R Alliance, along with Sustainable Chesapeake, that says Sustainable Chesapeake right there, we have a program for 2023 and 2024. There's two parts of it. The first part of it is if you're a manure hauler and you're doing injecting, the program will reimburse you for that injection acre. If you're reporting the injection acre, that we know how many acres within your area are being injected. Second thing is you can do some free advanced nitrogen management work with a consultant who is involved in the project, and you can kind of figure out exactly how much you can back your fertilizer rates down. So I've got a few slides here about that. We're one of the participating consultants. We use a product called AdaptN through our Fieldalytics platform. Fieldalytics is just the platform that we use for yield analysis, grid sampling, precision soil sampling, all that kind of stuff. Well, AdaptN comes right along with it. You can enroll fields in AdaptN. And what it does, you put in when you plant your corn, what day hybrid you have, what the previous crop was, if there was a cover crop, what your tillage method was, what your organic matter level was, planting population, yield goal, and pH. It'll do it as a flat rate across the field. We can do it as a variable rate in however many zones you want to do it. But it's a fun way for you to look at what nitrogen is doing in your soil, how much nitrogen your soil is producing, how much nitrogen your cover crop is contributing, and what your loss pathways are going to be. So nitrogen modeling, I can put his manure applications in here. We're going to put 4,500 gallons of manure on. We're going to do that May 1st. He applied 8 tons of pen manure in December. We've got the pen manure obviously left on the surface. The dairy manure was injected. Right now, the recommendation on last week was saying that we don't need any more nitrogen. We also applied 15 gallons of nitrogen with the starter. So that's interesting. Just do the quick math on that. 180 bushel corn takes 180 pounds of nitrogen. We've got soybean stubble that we're crediting 45 pounds for. We put 45 pounds on at planting, and we put 4,500 gallons of dairy manure on and a little bit of pen manure. You do the work on paper on your nutrient management plan or your manure management plan, you're short on nitrogen by about 35 pounds. This is telling us that we're actually even or ahead of the game. It'll also tell you where your losses are coming from. So this is looking at average gas loss, ammonia volatilization, average leaching loss, nitrate leaching. And it's talking about when that leaching is occurring. So that's, for us, this is interesting because it tells you based off of your soil type what you have to worry about. He planted corn in May, right? Right here is where he planted corn. We had all of our leaching losses between January and May. Think about that. Between January and May is when we lost all of our leaching nitrogen. We lost nitrate, right? We lost 10 to 15 pounds of nitrate per acre between January and May. We didn't even do anything. We didn't apply anything. It just went out the bottom. Our volatilization losses, as soon as we planted in May, right here is the dry spell. Right here is where it started raining. Bang. As soon as it started raining, our soil started becoming alive. We've got a lot more mineralization. We have a lot more microbial activity in the soil. All of our losses increased when we started getting rain. So we can kind of use this to figure out, okay, you know, you've got a type of soil that is more prone to nitrate leaching. Let's use a stabilizer that addresses nitrate leaching. You have a soil that's more prone to volatilization. Let's use something that's going to reduce our volatilization. Let's use injection to reduce our volatilization. It'll do it by soil type. You can kind of figure out, okay, silt loam or other. Are we worried more about denitrification? Are we worried more about leaching? Worried more about ammonia losses? We're just using this to help you guys make decisions on what we should be worried about and how we're modifying your management, whether it be through fertilizer, manure, or timing of your applications to reduce these losses and keep more nitrogen in the system. Because as soon as nitrogen leaves your system, it doesn't contribute to yield. If we keep it in your system, it contributes to yield. So some of this information is interesting to know because if we're looking at meeting that last 25% of nitrogen that you need over the next 2 months from tassel until grain fill, I need to know how nitrogen is leaving your system and how I'm going to modify your overall fertility plan to make sure that we've got enough nitrogen in that last couple days of growth to get to where we want to go. Mineralization, this is a really interesting thing. As organic matter levels increase, mineralization rates will increase. As our soil health parameters increase, right, our microbial populations change, we get more nitrogen cycling in a soil, this curve is going to steepen, right? But what this is saying is this particular soil, by today, has the potential to mineralize 140 pounds of nitrogen. That's exactly what we saw in Eric and Kevin's soil test. We already knew that. Right? Here's another way of confirming that the soils have the ability to do that. That's pretty fun to see. So are we backing our fertilizer rates down because of it? Maybe, maybe not, right? It's gonna depend on your ability to take risk. It's going to depend on your ability to play with things on your farm and come up with a site-specific opportunity to reduce your fertilizer rates, but the opportunity is there. If you're injecting, we've got the tools to work with you that we can help you back those fertilizer rates down without seeing losses on the backside. And if you're injecting and you're spending the money for injecting, we want to help you offset all the costs that injection can be and make that a profitable entity for you. This is one of the tools that we're using. Plant sampling. And I got like 2 or 3 minutes here, Eric, that I'm going to talk, and then I'll turn it over to you. This is a good time to go out and do plant sampling, right? So plant sampling for us, we do it. We'll do it twice in corn. We'll do it when the corn is knee high. We'll do it just a little bit before the corn comes out and tassel. You know, plant sampling tells you how your plants are reacting to your fertility decisions. It does not tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. So just keep that in mind. So when I do a plant sample, and this is a plant sample that I would have done when stuff was knee high, just coming out of the dry spell that we went through, plants take about 10 to 14 days to respond. Once we have 40 days of no rain and we start getting rain, there's a recovery process of about 10 to 14 days within that plant. If you do a plant sample too soon, you get errant results. So my recommendation to you guys is interpretation can be tricky when you're looking at plant samples, but you should be able to take your plant sample and take your soil test, and you should find correlation between those two. Okay? If your potassium levels on the soil test are showing good and your potassium levels here are showing low, something is off with your plant sampling or something is drastically off with root development. But these are great tools for you to use to figure out how much sulfur, how much boron, how much zinc, how much micronutrients you need to get to the yield where you want to go. So I like to do these in conjunction with manure injection just to make sure that we've got our micros right, that we can modify our side dress applications. We can start thinking about late season fungicide applications and any kind of packages we need to put in with that. Easy tools to use. Phosphorus issue. This is actually my farm. And this is phosphorus, right? And the green is telling me that phosphorus is good. It actually says 406 parts per million. You get in a little bit of issue when you have phosphorus levels over 200 parts per million. Mine are 4. FPR applications through a number of years. So injection, right? This is the phosphorus index. It's great. You can go through it at your own pace. Whenever you can't sleep at night, just pull this up. It'll make you go to sleep. I want to focus on that one right there. Phosphorus indexing and manure injection, okay? If I'm going to surface apply my manure, I get a credit of 0.6. If I inject my manure, I get a credit of 0.2. That's a big difference. So now, if I have somebody who's out there injecting manure, and this particular situation I used, I get a phosphorus score of 49 when I inject my manure. I get a phosphorus score of 81 when I surface apply my manure. If you're a CAFO, if you have a manure management plan with phosphorus issues, manure injection will lower your phosphorus index scores and your phosphorus risk liability by 30 to 40%, depending on the manure that you have. All right, so we all have long-term phosphorus issues on our farm, okay? We want to make sure that we're monitoring our phosphorus levels through time. One of the concerns I have with injection is if we want to make injection pay for somebody, we're going to have to up the application rates. Right? The more we up the application rates, the bigger the nitrogen savings and the return on investment is for injection. As we up those application rates, we're upping the phosphorus load from the applications that we make, perhaps leading to long-term issues, right? So I just want to make sure that when you guys are working with your customers that we've got phosphorus in the back of our mind. Phosphorus regulations, they really affect us now. They're going to affect us in 10 years. Whatever kind of regulation we're dealing with, phosphorus is going to be a big issue for us. If we want to be successful 10 years, 15 years from now, we got to make sure that our phosphorus levels are in check and that whatever we're doing today is not leading to long-term phosphorus increases through time. Do your soil tests every 2 or 3 years, track where those phosphorus levels are going to go, and just make sure that you're not causing any kind of problems for yourself. So that's all I got, right on time. This is fantastic.
Tell some funny stories about it.
Funny stories? What questions do you guys have? Anything?
Why are we applying nitrogen at 3 and 4 foot side dressing nitrogen when the top end needs it? Should we be trying to go through more when the corn's 8 foot, 6 foot?
Yeah, that's a good question. His question is, why are we applying nitrogen when corn is 3 foot tall when it's obviously the corn that is 9 feet tall that needs it?
Let's say we injected it, already has a bunch from that.
Right.
Wait to put the side dressing.
Yeah. So when you think of an exponential uptake curve, right? The majority of our nitrogen needs to go into the plant between knee high and tassel. And when I say the majority, it's like 7 to 8 pounds per acre per day that needs to go into your plant during those periods. That's a really impressive number, right? To think that in a week's time, your crop is taking 50 to 60 pounds of nitrogen up, 15 to 20 gallons of fertilizer a week it's taken up. So we need to make sure that during that exponential growth phase, we've got enough nitrogen present to satisfy demand because it goes like wildfire. Yes, we need to do something on that back end to figure out how we're going to meet demand. We're going to do some logistics, right? We don't have enough high boys with Y drops or whatever to get that nitrogen where we want to go. Other issue that you have is that as soon as a plant hits tassel, and I think you'll go across this corn over here is not quite in tassel, but as soon as a plant hits tassel, right, like it switches from vegetative growth to reproductive growth. And as soon as it hits reproductive growth, it starts cannibalizing itself, just starts eating itself and transferring nutrients from one part into the grain, right? That's just what a corn plant does. And it will cannibalize every part of itself, including the roots. So now we've got 25% of the nitrogen yet to go into the plant, and we have a root system that is diminishing by the day. All right, that's a conundrum for us. And this year it's going to be more of a conundrum because we only have a partial root system. So when I think of late season nitrogen, I think we definitely need to make sure that we have fertilizer applied at the right rate to carry us through to some of those later growth stages. But what I find is the bigger contributing source for nitrogen during that last 25% is your soil. Right? Mineralization rates are going through the roof in July and August and September, exactly when your corn is trying to finish off and take in that last 25%. So the safest long-term bet that we have is making sure that our soil can crank out nitrogen during those later growth stages. And that just takes some time, right? We want to get our soils into a position where mineralization rates are really cranking during those later growth stages. If your soils are not doing that and you're continuously noticing nitrogen deficiencies during kernel fill, then you probably need to look at doing some kind of a high boy application and put the last 50 pounds of nitrogen on through a Y drop or through some other kind of system like that. And I think as yields increase, we'll probably look more and more at doing just that thing. So anything else? I'm glad you're all awake. I'll turn it over to Eric.